and welcome
Welcome, everybody.
to another episode of the Alphawaves Podcast.
Yes.
You are here with your hosts,
Kam and Darren.
I was hoping you caught that one this time. If you're new here, Alphawaves is a space for well-being, wellness, and all of the culture that you need. And open conversations.
Yeah, and open minds.
Open minds.
And open hearts.
Follow us on TikTok at Alphawaves Podcast everywhere. And yeah, get in touch with us.
Yeah.
So nicely following that, I do have a question sent in from somebody.
Nice. Okay, let's hear it.
I don't know who wants. I guess we can both tackle it.
Okay.
So they ask, is it healthy to just have some things for yourself? To have and do some things for yourself solely from time to time without telling anyone? That's the question. So I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
Is it healthy to just do some things and have some things for yourself solely from time to time without telling anyone?
I think so.
Mm.
I think so. It depends on the thing.
Do you think so?
It depends on the thing. Sometimes you might do something crazy and you just need to confess.
Well, what if it's not destructive to anyone?
Then yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Why not?
That's a bit like vigilante.
What do you mean? There's some things you can keep to yourself and do for yourself. Why not?
No, I think you can. I think you definitely can. But when I'm thinking about it, it's a bit crazy sometimes. Like if you're doing something crazy, and then you just go back to living a normal life like nothing happened.
Yeah, but then it's fun because you've got an exciting secret. And you keep some things sacred to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like in this era of sharing so much online and let's normalize everything and oversharing, it's nice to normalize secrecy.
Can you just chalk it down to an experience?
What do you mean?
Like, not every experience needs to be shared with someone. Like, say if you've done something totally, just randomly, you had this thought like, let me just try something quickly. And you just wanted to try it for the experience, yeah? There was no malicious intent behind it. There was no premeditated thought. You're just in the moment. Do you think you need to share that with someone?
I think it's important to have that because you know what? I'm thinking back to when I was younger and I used to just do things.
Yeah.
But not even like just random stuff or something like that. Even things like, I'm just going to apply for this job, go for it, get it, do it, and then tell people. And it was nice because I feel like when you do that, you're more of an individual.
Do you think it's easier to do that when you are an individual, as in like you've got no ties to nobody, you're single, you're not underneath your parents' watch? But say if you are in those situations where you have a partner or you live, not just live with your parents, but you're underneath your parents. What's the right word?
Wing.
Yeah. How about in those moments? Do you think it's still, or do you think that's even more important them times to do stuff and keep to yourself?
I think so. I think it's important to have your individuality. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's important to remember that although you might be in a partnership or something with someone or some people or part of a family or part of whatever, like you are a key player as well, like you're an individual.
So how do you separate that from being sneaky?
That's just an opinion.
What, sneakiness is an opinion?
Yeah, like if you've done something and someone's like, oh, that's kind of sneaky, or why didn't you tell me, or blah, blah, blah. That's because I used to have that. Like, I'd have a friend who, like, sometimes, say if you're starting to talk to someone, before you tell people, and it's not even in a like, oh, let me not jinx it. It's like, I want to feel it out. Like, they might not be worth mentioning yet, you know, it might not be a thing. And so when I'd mention it to this friend, she'd always say, oh, you didn't tell me. Why didn't you tell me? And it's like, you don't owe people information. It comes when it's relevant and I'm ready.
Yeah, that's true. But there is a, like, say if you do tell this person everything, and then this time you've decided not to.
You know what? I'm kind of starting to face that within myself because I'm realizing that I used to do things really independently before. And then I started sharing more. And I'm trying to find the balance between sharing good things with people and, you know, doing that, but then also trusting my own gut with stuff. Because then you kind of get like too dependent on someone's investment.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a bit annoying when someone knows things and then they ask you about it when you don't want to be asked.
Like when you're over it.
Yeah, or when you have no update,
Yeah.
or when you're not even thinking about it. It's just like, I don't know, like I said, some things within yourself need to be kept sacred or to yourself. Now, on the flip side, if I did something out of pocket and crazy, then I need to tell people about it, because otherwise I feel burdened with what I've just done.
Why do you need to, though? Because that's
Just
what
to
I was going to get
confess.
onto. Confession.
Just to confess, because sometimes you might do something that you might not even be proud of, or like you did something and it did help, and it's just like, oh, I went slightly off the rails for a second. It's nice to say it so that you're not holding it, but I guess those things depend on how you're holding it.
What do you mean by that?
Like if you're holding something like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, or I feel a bit whatever because of this, or you might even be overinflating an experience.
As in, it's burning you a bit that you've done
Or
this.
say you've done something embarrassing,
Yeah.
and then you're cringing so much, but then as soon as you share it, you're laughing about it, but you might not necessarily do that with yourself.
Because in your mind it seems bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
But when you share it, it could be a
It's
funny
minor,
moment.
it's funny,
Yeah.
It's just out of you.
I understand that element of it, but I don't know about this need to share. That's the part that I'm not sure of, because I just think there's some things in life, like I said before, it's just like an experience for you. Like, I don't know if you need to share everything.
Yeah.
Like, even if it didn't go right or you felt wrong for it afterwards, let that be your wrong. I don't think you should share it and allow people to have an opinion over something that you done in, let's say, a moment of madness or a moment of vulnerability, or even just a moment of excitement.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I think you should give yourself 72 hours with something before you share it. Just to know how you feel about it, because how you might feel about something in the first hour might be different in the 30th hour when you've given yourself room to reflect.
Yeah.
And also, when you're about to do things, or say if you're starting to work out or whatever, like build consistency within yourself first before you start telling people that you're doing this thing. I don't know why, but I just stand by that. Even if the people around you have the best intentions for you or something, it kind of gives you a feeling that you've achieved something when you haven't. Like say if you went for a walk in the morning 2 days in a row, that's so amazing, but it's not a week, it's not a habit now. So you're celebrating something that you should celebrate within yourself, like I'm building consistency. But to me, and maybe this is harsh, it's just not worth the pat on the back externally yet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. Have you ever been in that situation where somebody shared something with you and you're like, maybe you should have just kept that to yourself?
No, because I like knowing stuff.
What about, have you seen something? Like, for instance, on social media, there's a lot of things that I see sometimes. I'm like, that didn't need to be out here. You could have just kept that to your...
That did not need to be. But then again, I like knowing stuff. And sometimes I'll see someone's story and I'm like, that is not as bad as what I did at all. And now I don't feel alone with that feeling, you know? So I think people's voices are important. I think it's okay to share, but just share from a place of certainty that you're ready to share this thing now.
I guess so. But at the same time, it's like, you do things in a moment sometimes. And I guess, again, that could be something that they've done in a moment. Like they just thought this is the right thing to do right now.
Yeah. And
but
then
you can't really take it back.
Yeah. And then when you tell people, that becomes part of not your identity, but your thing that people are associating with you now. So you might lean into something more than you would have done ordinarily.
Exactly. I just don't... Obviously, we can't go into details because the whole point is that you do stuff to keep to yourself, yeah? But whenever it is the last time you've done something that you've kept to yourself, yeah?
I've not kept things to myself for a minute.
Okay.
I need to, though. This is an intervention. I do need to do that.
Why, though? Do you think it's having an effect on your life?
Yeah, because then, one, you start overinflating how you think people are looking at you. 2, I'm taking stuff to people when I should be taking it to myself and to God first, and then giving space and room for that answer to come through. And 3, it's just like I feel like my limbs are everywhere. I don't know how to describe it. Like I feel like I don't belong to myself. I don't know how else to describe it.
I'm trying to understand that one. I'll be honest.
Like I don't know, like you just feel too accessible. Do you know what I mean? Like on the one hand, it's so nice to share if something's making you feel down about it, you know? But then it's kind of like, so my friend reminded me of something that I said to him years ago. And I remember we were on the phone once and I was like, oh, how are you? And he's like, I'm okay. And I was like, you should say you're good, you know, like you manifest that. Like if you keep saying you're good, then one day you'll be good. And I think I've gotten so in the habit of sharing everything that's going on in my life that moments that I don't want to have linger have lingered now.
But is that because of you sharing it? As in, like, people bring it back up now because you shared it with them, so they think it's still part of you. Yeah, that's the danger of oversharing.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's some moments in life where you do some things, even some thoughts you have, that just because you felt like that in the moment or done it in the moment, it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
But once you share it, it kind of does.
And it becomes involuntary. Like I think it's so important to share your story and who you are and what you've been through, because like I said before, your voice is important for someone who needs to hear it. But when you're just like a newspaper, it's a lot.
Do you find it easy to forgive yourself though for things that you might do in crazy moments?
I don't actually. I don't. But it's kind of like a catch-22. Like it really is so beautiful having people in your life you can trust and you can be open with and share stuff with and be vulnerable with, because when you're really down, they remind you of who you are and they remind you that how you are now is still lovable and fine. And that's so, like, I can't even put into words how important that is. But at the same time, you almost become dependent on other people forgiving you and telling you that what you are is okay. So you're bypassing doing that for yourself. So it doesn't matter how many people tell you that you're a good person. If you're not feeling it or giving yourself room to have that conversation with yourself, then what do you do?
I guess sometimes people feel the need to share as well because it takes away that burden of having to actually deal with it themselves. Like now there's an additional person that can help you deal with something. And
sometimes you need the help, but also sometimes it's like I had to look at myself this year as well and find the balance, because I also am someone who tends to like mask and pretend that everything's fine and not reach out when I really need it. But then also finding the balance of knowing, like, am I helping myself? You know, like, do I need to reach out to someone specific who can help me with what I'm going through? Do I need to reach out to a gym? You know, like, you kind of stop yourself from finding solutions and you get in this loop of just complaining all the time.
Yeah, that's never a good place to be.
Yeah.
But don't you think sometimes, like, say you've done something which was just like a crazy moment for yourself, and now it's got to a place where within yourself, like, you're not disgusted with yourself or anything, but it's like, I know never to do that again, Don't you think that's more of a teachable moment than you doing that, sharing it with somebody, and then them saying that to you? Don't you think it is more teachable, like, just keeping it to yourself and knowing to yourself, I remember how that felt, I'm not going to do that again, rather than...
It is, because it also allows you to do it again if you need to, if you haven't learnt the lesson, without someone throwing that in your face. Or say if you've done something several times and you're so motivated to change, and then the other person just kind of doubts you, like, well, you said this before, or blah blah blah. And sometimes like, in theory, I think that can be helpful, but I don't know, I think sometimes it's not, like, when people are discouraging you. because it just kind of creates, like, words are spells. So when it's like, I've said this and now people are depending on me to do it and I'm going to fail again, it just creates that loop a bit more.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything, that is super unhealthy to keep to yourself?
Yeah, anything that's causing you harm by keeping it to yourself, like an inflated sense of like guilt or shame, or just if it's making you feel burdened, then you need to share it.
Anything that's kind of eating you up.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's some things that I will 100% take to the grave. I don't care who it teaches. Like, I'm not sharing it.
Yeah, because at the same time, sometimes, like, all right, even if it is eating you up, sharing it isn't necessarily going to take away that feeling. It's now just another person that's looking at you. In
Sometimes
the way that
it
you're looking at yourself.
does.
Sometimes I think it's a bit of a risk. It can go either way. It's a risk. That's why sometimes I think it's better to just keep to yourself and deal with it yourself. On some occasions, because it's a risk. You don't know what you're going to get from this other person that you're sharing it with.
Depends on who you say it to, I guess. But for me, whenever I've had a moment like that where there's something that's been eating me up and I feel terrible about it, when I've shared it, it has always gone in my favor. You know, like, because the way that we look at ourselves is so harsh. And we don't have an outside perspective. We have our own inner beliefs, what we think we should have done, literally battling what we wished we did, and...
But what if you're able to compartmentalize things in life? Like, you just look at it as like, that was a wild moment, But you're able to just mark it off as exactly that. Like, it was just a wild moment in your life,
But then it's not really eating you up.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to share things so someone can remind you of your context, that you were young, that you were this. And when you say those things to yourself, you think you're giving yourself excuses, so then you're even harder on yourself. And sometimes you need that outside perspective. But if you did something that was out of pocket and doesn't make you feel guilty, but it's just like, no one needs to know this, then that's different, because that was a moment that was really just contextual for that moment. It's not something I'd necessarily do again, or is a habit, or you know what I mean? Like, this secret that I'm holding, it's like, no one needs to know that nearly happened to me, or I nearly did that.
I just don't know, like, who does it benefit?
You, when you share.
You think so? You think sharing can benefit yourself? I guess in terms of like lessening the load of it, if there's that attached to it. But say there's no guilt, there's no regret, there's no remorse linked to it,
then keep it to yourself. Because some things are just for you, for when you're 80 years old and you're like, damn, I can't believe I really did that. And you're allowed to have those moments.
It's I don't know, like, have you ever came across somebody that is living a double life? But I never
really see it as a double life, to be fair, though, because I just see things in a different way. Like, I think you can be so many things simultaneously, and it's okay to be multifaceted. I find people like that more interesting. When it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know you did this every day after work. Who would have thought? And then you share your secrets and you're like, I do this every day after work. Like, it's fun. It's not about like a double life. It's just being given the privilege to know someone more.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, I guess. But what if it's like closer to home? Not like somebody that you work with, someone closer to home, like whether it is someone in your actual household or just a family member or whatever.
That has happened to me recently, actually. And again, it was just a profound moment of like trust, that I've now been trusted with something, like more of an insight into what that person's day is like and what they're going through. And it just invokes so much compassion in me. Yeah. And likewise, I shared more, and it's brought us so much closer together because you just know each other more now. And you know what the other person needs and what they've been missing, and it's a beautiful thing.
I think if you can receive information without judgment,
Yeah.
then
I'd rather have that. Like, I'd rather have someone who shows me what their bad day look, as long as they're not taking it out on me, but someone who shows me that than someone who's aloof and disappears, you know? Because I would hate for someone to be close to me and to feel like in the moment that they needed me most, they couldn't come to me. Because then what am I here for?
you might be there for other reasons though.
True, I might be there for comedic relief or like after or whatever. Like, I always think that God sends the right person at the right time. But I just hate the idea of someone dealing with stuff alone when they just don't have to. And I know it's so strange because I often do that myself. But I'm grateful that I don't do that as much as I used to.
But you see it all the time. Like, somebody might be going through something, and then it comes to a point where it might come out, and then somebody's like, "Why didn't you just say something? Why didn't you tell me?"
Exactly.
And I used to be like, "Yeah, why didn't you?" But I get it at the same time.
I get it. Like, there's so much associated with it, and then when you do that, like especially with work, for example, you lose your sense of like normalcy as well. Where you can just come in and not have to think about anything. But again, that's also what I was going to say. Like, it's important to be discerning and to share, because that stuff will just end up spilling out of you in the wrong places. You'll end up, you know, I've known people who tell the first person they've met everything, and not in like we're bonding and we're kind of having a trauma bond moment, and it's a little bit weightless, you know, like we're just connecting over a serious deep topic. It's like they are literally burdening a fresh new person with stuff, and it's like, why are you telling me all of this? Because the stuff comes out anyway. Like, you end up sharing with a random stranger or like colleagues or people that are not the people to share that with.
How do you feel about oversharers and oversharing? Do you think there's a place for it?
Yeah, like, share with the people who you can share with. I think sometimes there might be like a divine intervention moment, and you happen to meet someone, and you might end up having a deep conversation where you're both charged up and getting something out of it, and you end up hearing the things that you needed to hear in that moment.
Have you
But yeah, and I've had those moments where it's just like a profound moment, and it's not like, oh, and then this happened and then that happened or blah blah blah, you know. It's like you're just resonating.
Have you ever felt a backlash for sharing something though?
So often.
And does that not put you off of sharing again?
It's made me wiser with who to share with and when.
I don't know. I've not had that experience, but I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of...
How do you feel when people overshare with you? Because I feel like you're a listener. How do you feel?
It's difficult sometimes because, like, depending on what you're sharing with me, I try and look at it objectively and be like, all right, you're just sharing. I'm not going to let this form my opinion of you at all, yeah? But there's some elements of it where it's like, oh, you're like that, yeah? Like you just can't help it, right?
You can't help it. Like, you start forming more of a picture around someone, like it's normal. That's why you have to be careful with who you overshare with. Like, someone who falls back on really knowing you to be able to say, like, who you are and what you're going through. You know, not like, oh, I didn't know you were like that. It's like, oh, I can tell you're not in a good place right now. Otherwise, you never would have done that.
But it's like it helps you to know somebody better. 100%, yeah. But at the same time, like, I do look at it as, let me not let this now form my opinion of you. Like, I'm just going to take it on face value that this is whatever happened. You're sharing it with me because maybe you just need to get it off your chest.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that you're looking for anything from it. You just need to get it off your chest. And I just happen to be your soundboard at this moment, yeah?
Yeah.
But there are times where I'm like actively trying to stop someone. Like, you sure you want to... Like, are you understanding what you're saying to me right now?
Who do you do that with?
Anybody that I have any sort of care about, I would say. Like, anyone that I have any sort of care about, I would... Because don't confuse the fact that you're comfortable with me with the fact that now you're so comfortable with me, you're telling me everything. Even though I'm not going to do anything with this information, just know that I know now, right? Like, somebody else knows. Forget that it's me. Somebody else knows.
That's such an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it's just a bit like there's things I can think in my life throughout. There's been like a few things that I would have done throughout my life. Yeah, I can't even pinpoint one in particular, but I know that if I would have shared that with somebody, even if that person doesn't treat me any differently, in the back of my mind when I'm talking to them, I will always feel like
they know this.
Yeah, they know this one thing about me that I would like to think that they'll never hold it against me or whatever. If it's something bad, it might even be something bad. It might just be something crazy. But like, yeah, I just wouldn't want them to form an opinion on me based on that one thing, that one moment, that one incident.
Like I said, it depends on what it is and who it is, you know, because...
But I feel like anybody's got the capacity to do that, though.
That's such a bleak way of looking at things. I'm not going to lie.
Maybe, you're right. Maybe. But
because I just feel like I have only done that with people who I might not know super well. And then I'm just like... You can tell, like, when someone's oversharing like that, that they're in a bleeding moment. Like, it's bleeding out of them. This moment right here is not about me and this person. It's about this person's cry for help. And then there's like my friends, like people who I've seen through life and phases where I'm like, I'm so glad you told me this so I can, you know, just soundboard with you or just receive this with you or laugh about it with you or comfort you, you know.
The only dangerous thing is, sometimes in those moments it's not deliberate. Like, how many times have you said something to someone? I hope it's not often, but how many times have you said something to someone that they just caught you in that moment, like that time and place, but you wouldn't go out of your way to tell this person this?
Yeah, but that's when I believe in a higher power and God's timing, that they sent the right person to me for that. Because I needed that person for whatever reason to hold this.
Yeah, I just don't know, man. Sometimes it's a bit, it just forms like...
It sounds like, though, like trying to find the balance between preserving your self-image and then being known, you know? Like, don't you think it's important for the people around you to know you?
I do. And I think you should share a lot with them. But I just think there's some things that is just for you to discover about yourself. Like, it's not for anybody else to discover this side of you, because it could just be a fleeting moment. Why do they need to know about a fleeting moment?
That's true. If it's a fleeting moment, then yeah. But if it's like a fleeting moment that's stuck with you to the point where you're like, I do not want anyone to know about this, then even that within yourself is a moment of reflection of like, why am I protecting this moment so much? Like, what am I scared about what this moment says about me? Maybe
morally you don't like it.
True.
Maybe.
You know what? Lately, I've accepted that I'm a shade of grey. I'm not as good of a person as I thought I was. And that, at first, was devastating.
To yourself.
To myself. And then
but you can't live with a false pretense towards yourself.
Yeah, but then it became freedom, because I'm like, you know what? I don't have to be that good of a person all the time. Like, I'm literally just a person.
But are you trying to uphold the image of being this good person, or you just... That's the difference.
I think you want to be a good person.
Everyone, well, not everyone, but...
Not like, everyone.
You would want to be looked at as somewhat good, right?
Yeah. And to actually be a good person. But sometimes you might do things where you weren't in the, you know, spontaneous right action of that moment and you didn't do the exact right thing.
But does that make you a bad person, though?
No, like, that makes you... Like, it's okay if you do things that aren't necessarily always morally... Right.
But you know that sometimes if you share that moment with someone, they're going to now have that opinion of you. That's why sometimes it's better to just keep it to yourself.
True, but their opinion might be different. Like, that's your opinion, like that, you know, potentially your opinion of you. That person, like I said, they might see it with more context.
They might do. But that's what I mean, it's a risk.
Just tell me what you did.
I haven't done anything.
I am filled with curiosity now.
I literally haven't done anything that I'm thinking. I'm just thinking, like, I'm just playing advocate. Just
Because now I'm like, let's just end the episode and just tell me what. Let's share. Open up.
That means I'm getting good at this advocate stuff. You're really believing that I've done
I'm
something.
here like, well, what could it be?
No, I'm just talking objectively. Just like,
all right.
yeah, just objectively. I just find it interesting because, yeah, there's some things that you just personally, like for instance, yeah, I had a situation recently where I was going for something, yeah, I was applying for something. Normally, I would talk about it. This occasion, I didn't. I just wanted to keep it to myself, yeah, and to keep the whole process to myself. Like, this isn't no big groundbreaking thing that if I told someone, they're going to look at me differently. But even something as small as that, as minute as that, yeah, I wanted to keep to myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, the reasoning behind it is not dramatic. Like, me telling someone's not going to change the way they're looking at me, or it might do some people. It might look at me like, oh, I don't know. They could have any opinion on that one. But I'm just saying, sometimes it doesn't even have to be as dramatic as like you've done something that's morally wrong, or it's just sometimes it's just nice to keep some things to yourself.
It is, especially with stuff like that, because it's just like, I just want to see how I feel about it without reporting it to anyone. I want to see how it turns out, and I'll tell you about it after. Unless it went really bad, and then I won't.
Sometimes you don't want anybody's opinion on things.
Yeah, you don't.
Or need anybody's opinion on things.
Well, sometimes you don't want anyone's opinions. You're just like, I just want to do this thing and see how it makes me feel. I've done that when I've gone to see someone that I may not should have seen. I'll tell you after if I feel like it. But I want to make my bad decision now.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, as well, I feel like, I don't know how everybody's mind works, yeah? But is there not some things in life that you just want to experience just for yourself?
Yeah.
Like there's little, that's the wrong word I was about to use. There's little...
What was he going to say?
there's little interests, yeah? That might spark your mind, and you're just like, I wonder how that is over there.
Yeah, I would say so. Just try things out. Because I was talking to this woman who was seeing someone younger, and it was so annoying because she was judging herself and thinking, what would this person say, or what would that person say, or would they just think of me as some aunt? Like, she was saying all these annoying things, and I was like, but are you enjoying yourself? Yeah. You know?
Most importantly.
You just think about, you know, what everyone says. You'll just rob yourself of experiences. And I was like, if it's all like legal and normal, then it is so much fun to experience a younger guy as a woman, or the other way around. I
didn't know that's where he was going with it. Okay, yeah. It
is. If it's not like some crazy age gap, it can be interesting.
But even that, like, that's an experience for self. Like, why do you need to share that with somebody?
Yeah.
For them to now look at you in a funny way.
And then people judge you, exactly, or look at you differently.
Huh? I said someone could turn around and be like, oh, you only like kids. Not kids, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they're just like, oh, you can't get anyone else. That's why you're blah. And it's like, no, I just wanted some energy. Like, why not? Yeah. Or I've even seen it like where someone's doing something and they'll put it down just because they're telling someone that they're doing this thing, because there's this idea that I shouldn't be doing it. And it's like, you could end up having something really meaningful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
My friend told me about this couple who've just had a baby, and the woman's 40 and the guy's 27.
Like 13 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, we forget that, that is a big age gap, but 27 is a grown man.
Yeah, he's
depending on the kind of person they are. Exactly. So it's like, and they're so happy, like if they get along and they're happy and they're doing what they're doing and they're married and they have kids, like, let people live their lives. And more importantly, you should let yourself live your life.
Most importantly. So do you think, forget about the sharing side of it, do you think if something sparks your interest that you should try it?
Well, yeah, it sparked my interest.
But some people will look at it and be like, I don't know how this would be perceived.
I strongly say you should always go for something that sparks your interest, because until something becomes something, it can be a hobby, it can be an interest, it can be a spark. You never know what you're going to get out of it. You know, it can be what you get out of it might be totally different from what it is. Like when I started doing the stand-up comedy class this year, it was so random. It was really, really random. But and if I'd kind of let that get to me, I would have missed out on a whole journey of like self-confidence, of doing something that's really fun, of having a new interest and hobby, or even meeting the people that I've met who've become, you know, really precious people in my life.
So even with that, yeah.
But you know how many people said to me, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. Like, I never would have pictured this, blah, blah, blah. And if I'd gone to them and said, oh, I'm thinking of doing this thing, all that doubt around me or disbelief, it would have put me off.
So what actually drove you to do that? To like pursue that interest?
Yeah, so one, the timing of it, like I'd met.
Did it fall into your lap, or it was something you actively?
It fell into my lap. It's something I've always had in the back of my mind. It's like, this would be interesting to try. Like, this would be kind of cool. And then it fell into my lap. Like, my friend told me about these classes. I got in touch with them. I did the classes, and it was amazing.
Right. And during that whole process, was you sharing that with anyone?
No.
You only started to share it once you come out the other side, right?
Yeah, like once I was already in the classes and it was happening, because I didn't even know what I was looking forward to yet, or if I'd get onto it. Like, it's a really, like, you have to do a whole application. Not everyone gets to be on it. There's only 16 spots. So it was so cool to get that. So
it goes back to my point. Like, imagine you did share that information, like, oh yeah, I just applied for this. Like, that's what you shared.
Yeah.
Forget about the whole thought process of I'm gonna do this. You just shared that, oh, I just applied for this. And then someone's like, really? Like, you?
Yeah, like, I can't picture you like that. Or even the flip side, if people are overly encouraging, then you just have something to prove either way before you figure out if you like it, if you want it, if it's for you.
Yeah, it could go the complete opposite. That someone's like, yeah, I always knew you could do this. What you should talk about is... And the next minute now, it's ruined your whole thought process, because now you've got someone else in your ear. So sometimes I really do believe that if you want to share, it's up to you, but just keep things to yourself.
Keep things to yourself sometimes, because then you kind of go into something feeling like you need to be excelling at it, and you rob yourself of the experience of being a fresh student. And that's so fun, like going into something completely as a sponge. Because it's so inspiring and fun, and it's like the beginning stages of creativity. It's like being a baby playing with Play-Doh. You're just doing stuff.
I've said it so many times of late that I just believe life is about discovery, and some parts of discovery I think you keep to yourself. Yeah, honestly, I think there's an art in being able to keep things to yourself. Actually,
it is an art form, because right now I need to do that a bit more. It's so easy to slip into this, like, I need to announce everything, and it kind of removes responsibility from you to do the thing as well.
Yeah. I just think it's just finding that balance, though, especially if you are, what did I say at the start? Like, if you're with somebody, like if you're slipping off to do these things, let's say, like finding the time to slip off to do things for yourself. I think there's that balance of knowing when you're doing things for your own care and when you're just being very, like, conniving, if that makes sense. Not necessarily like what you're doing is conniving, but it's just the whole act of secrecy.
I don't know, because I think
there's a difference between keeping things to yourself and secrecy, don't you believe? I feel like secrecy kind of edges a bit too close to lies. No?
Sometimes it might be around people who ask too many questions.
No, yeah, of course. But I mean, like, with your the ones closest to you. People that have no right to, not right, but no need to know your business, then it's a bit different. But someone that you share with, whether that's siblings, partner, whatever. But now you're doing something completely separate to them and not sharing it, and the way you're doing it as well.
I think if you're gatekeeping something that could help someone, or if you're doing something that's morally grey, or do you know what I mean, then maybe. But at the same time, like, I'm not gonna lie, like when I've been on the receiving end of that, like someone's been doing something and I'm like, oh my God, this whole time you've been doing this, I do feel a bit like, oh, you didn't tell me. But they don't have to, you know what I mean?
That's right. But say for instance, yeah, with you and your classes, yeah, say every time you would go out, you would kind of be transparent where you're going. But now all of a sudden it's, oh, I'm just popping out for a bit.
Yeah, but what like that's part of it. That's preserving my. What if I'm around someone who's like, where are you going? What time are you coming back?
No, but
Blah,
you
blah,
always
blah.
share with this person where you're going.
Yeah, but if I'm sharing something that I'm not ready to share yet, then me saying I'm going out and I'll be back at this time. Like if I'm telling you this is the area I'm in and this is the time I'll be back, that's enough information as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
You're too good at this devil's advocate, because why do I feel like I'm battling you when you're on my side? That's conniving. That's secrecy. Why don't you share that we're on the same page?
No, that's just my point. Like, you shouldn't have to then turn around and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, because it's also controlling as well.
I mean,
you know,
kind of, but not
and
even
nosy.
so much. No, but if you set the precedent of always sharing things with this person, they've almost become accustomed to it.
True, but you're allowed to change your mind. Like if you do something so different, like comedy, for example, and you're like, I just want to keep this to myself for a minute. I'm doing a different circumstance in my life, so that calls for different behavior.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting.
Yeah,
so interesting. Ultimately, I think there are times and things in your life that you should feel more than welcome to keep to yourself.
Yeah.
But if you do eventually want to share, it's up to you. But I think it's healthy to have things that you keep to yourself, honestly.
I think so too. I think it's healthy to have things to keep to yourself. I feel like it's important to have discernment with when you're sharing, when you're oversharing. It's hard to be on the receiving end of like someone who overshares daily too much as well, because it's like you need a journal or professional help or something, because I can't hold this every day.
Yeah, I just, like I said just a minute ago, I just think it's difficult sometimes to find time to do things for yourself when you're so not imperative, but like you're such a prominent part of someone else's life that taking time to do something for yourself sometimes can feel like you're doing something wrong, if
like
that
you're
makes
betraying
sense.
someone.
Yeah, like finding that time to actually remember to look after yourself and look after your interests, and whatever sparks, like you said, if something sparks your interest, you should do it. But it can be I can recognize how it can be difficult at times when your life is so intertwined with others, if that makes sense.
It's true. It's true.
But I think it's so important to find that balance.
Yeah, to have your own something to call
What's
your
the
own.
word they call it? The guilty pleasure. Like your own little guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I have a couple of guilty pleasures. And you know what? On that note as well, like there are certain things that I might watch or whatever, like guilty pleasure things that I don't share. And not because I'm ashamed of it or I feel a type of way. It's because I know 100% if someone knows who doesn't know me and all my different, you know, parts of myself, or most of them, they're just gonna judge or label me as a specific thing and then be on at me about why I shouldn't watch this. And it's like, just get out of my face.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. So anything else on that?
No, that's everything.
I think that
I've shared enough.
I think that's a good roundabout place to leave that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for that question. If you got any other questions or comments or anything you want us to discuss,
that question sparked a whole convo, so thank you.
Yeah, 100%. So if you want to be like that person, please interact with us.
Yeah.
Alphawaves Podcast, message us, DM us, and we're always responsive.
Yeah, you can share with us.
Yeah.
It's a safe space. You could share.
Space.
You
It's
could
a
share.
safe space.
We share with you, so.
Every week. So yeah, on that note,
Yeah.
thanks again for a lovely episode.
Oh, thank you.
That was insightful. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for listening.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for playing devil's advocate. Next time, you need to share.
Yeah, I can do that.
I'll be the question person.
I can do that. And thanks again for listening and watching wherever you do take in your podcasts. So I have been Darren.
And I have been Kam.
And we are the Alphawaves Podcast.
Oh, yes, we are.
And until next time.